So what is going on, my Star Citizen friends? We are back with another Making Money in Star Citizen. This time, we're going to be looking at the very lucrative way of making money via drug running, which is essentially just a fancy way of doing cargo runs. Right now, there is very little risk to actually going out there and purchasing illegal substances in Star Citizen and transferring them to their sale hubs. It is very unlikely that you're ever going to be in a location where you're going to get scanned, where you're going to get scanned by Crusader security or any of the security services. And if you do, it's pretty unlucky and you're not going to get the largest crime stat, so it's not the end of the world. Now, I'm also going to be doing this from the perspective of somebody that has basically no ship. So when you first start in Star Citizen 3.18, you're going to be given 250,000 AUEC, I think, roughly, and you can use that for various things. And in this case, we're going to use it to rent a ship. Now, I already currently have some money from just doing various activities. So we're currently sitting at 868,000 AUEC, and that is going to be plenty. So there is various ways that you can rent ships for this. The first one being refineries, cargo bays, and certain ship rental locations. So you could find these locations on the wiki, but for this case, we're going to be at a refinery at CRUL1, which is right here on the map, right next to Crusader. There's also refineries and cargo bays in various locations. If you're on the Hurston side of the verse, going to Hurston, and then also just flying to Everest Harbor and going to the cargo hub, you'll be able to rent a ship, a freelancer, which is really good for this. But because I'm not really close to any locations that would have a freelancer or a Connie, for example, I'm just going to rent a Cutlass Black for this. So anything with a reasonably sized cargo hold will work for this. So I'm going to run over to the services area of the refinery, and I'm going to pop over to right here, Vantage Rentals, and I'm going to go find the Cutty Black, and it's going to be 34,000 AUEC to rent the ship. Great. So that's it. You now have, or we now have, a Cutlass. Now at this point, it might be wise to pick up some various things like med pens and stuff, or tools and equipment. I'm just going to see if they have a tractor beam, which they do, because I don't think I have one right now, and a multi-tool. Now this isn't required, it's just nice to have, because the multi-tool can just give you access to various things, especially the tractor beam. In the case that you accidentally crash, you can also drag cargo out of the ship's hull if need be. So not required, but highly recommended. Now that we have our ship rented, we're going to go and we're going to pick up some cargo. So now that we're flying in our Cutlass Black that we just rented with the cargo bay, we now need to go pick up our cargo. There are a variety of different locations in the verse where you can purchase illegal substances, but we're going to mainly go to Crusader because all three of the moons around Crusader have locations where you can buy cargo, and on Daymar at Bryo's Breaker Yard is one of the best places currently to sell the substances. So everything is going to be relatively close. There's various locations where you can sell around the verse on Hurston, CRUL5, but this seems to be the best and the easiest. Now there is an unmarked area where you can buy drugs called Jumptown on Yela, but to get things started, I'm only going to be talking about the locations where you can quantum travel to directly on the moon to save time. The only catch is sometimes the quantities and the available commodities is not going to be as great as what you'd get on Jumptown. However, it's all competition based and just depends on how many people are actually doing these runs in your region. The first location we're going to be going to is on Selin. It's called private property and it is marked, so you are able to quantum travel over there. While we're flying over to private property, I want to mention something important about comlinks. These are the satellites that orbit planets and moons, and pirates will frequently take down the comlinks, allowing them to successfully attack kill, and rob you and steal your cargo without fear of getting a bounty or a crime stat. This is particularly important in the Crusader system around Daymar. So if you do fly over to that moon and you notice that the satellite dish in the top right is not visible, then you might encounter some problems. All right, so it is dark out right now, but private property is a pretty small spot here. There it is. Sometimes it can be hard to see. Now, you want to land your ship, if you haven't done cargo runs before in Star Citizen, you want to land your ship relatively close. You don't want to be too far away where you have a big run and you might be outside of the cargo purchasing window, whatever you want to call it. Another tip is, if you can, don't leave your cargo doors open, because again, people can hide at these outposts, sneak on your ship, and fly away with all your purchased drugs and offload it to their own ship and sell it. So I know it could be tempted to just leave the cargo hold open, but okay. Now we're at the purchasing screen. So we're going to run over to the commodity shop. And again, there might be some issues with the computer, so we'll have to wait and see. In this case, there isn't. If there ever is an issue where you can't see your cargo grid, go through multiple inventories, leave, and come back, and keep trying. It will sort itself out, usually. So they have very low inventory of slam, which is the most lucrative of the illegal substances. So we're going to buy that. And then we're also going to buy the neon, simply because it's unlikely at the other locations we're going to fill up the cargo hull completely. So we're just going to buy everything that they have, because we will make a profit on all of this. Slam and Widow are the most lucrative of the two. Slam, Widow, and ETAM, sorry. But that's okay. At this point, we're going to buy it all, including the ultra toxins. Now, you can actually see the cargo we just purchased loading into our ship. And if we ever needed to, we can use our tractor beam to move it around, or even move it off the ship into another ship. Not required, but it's always a nice option just in case things go wrong. Now we're going to be going to Yela, to our next location called NT 999XX. There are two locations, XX2 and the original XX. Kind of confusing. You want to go to the original NT99XX. Full stop. That is going to be the location where we're going to be able to buy our next bunch of illegal commodities. Now, if people are wondering, I am just flying with keyboard and mouse, so you don't need a fancy, expensive flight setup to play Star Citizen, and you also don't need to spend a lot of money on ships, or any money in this case. Like on the account that I'm playing on right now and the guide you're watching, we are just using the $45 version of the game. All right, same deal. We'll go to the commodities tab. We'll select our ship. We'll select the Widow, and we'll purchase it. Not a whole lot available right now. And we'll select the ETAM as well. Great. Perfect, and there's our new cargo. And we're going to fly over to one final location. Our final stop is going to be waste management. This is going to be on Daymar. It's also very close to the location where we're going to be selling the commodities. Now, if you actually wanted to start there at waste management, go there, sell, and then go to the other moons and come back and see if the commodities have reset. That's actually not a bad way to do it. But in this case, we started on selling first. So head over to your star map, click on Daymar, look around the globe until you find waste management. Click that and quantum travel over there. And I do believe this is a nod to The Sopranos. I could be wrong, but I mean, we're buying illegal commodities from a waste management location. It seems right. But yeah, if you don't have a crime stat, then you don't have much to worry about. If you do have a crime stat, then it may be in your best interest to just do the time or try to pay your fee, your fines, before doing this, because you could be purchasing hundreds of thousands of goods, and then while you're inside, somebody could blow up your ship. So that's not ideal. All right, we're at our final commodities tab before talking about Jumptown, of course. And they are completely out of stock, as you can see. So this will happen from time to time, which is kind of unfortunate. These will slowly restock over time, but yeah, sadly, some other player has already come along and purchased all the supplies. Now, if this happens to you, there are actually a few things you can do. The first being you can do what's called a bed log. So inside most of the ships that are cargo capable, you're going to have the ability to sleep in your bed and log out. That is going to save your location in the verse, and whenever you switch to a different region, currently I'm playing on the United States, I would switch to the EU region, log back in, and I would be in the exact same location where I logged out in my bed, and I'm going to be showing you guys that right now. A few tips for bed logging. If you're going to be logging out on the moon or a planet's surface, do that at least 500 meters away from an outpost. It is far safer to do this in outer space, not in atmosphere, but outer space. Now, if you do this on a planetary or lunar surface, you may encounter some strange clipping bugs whenever you log back in. Most of the time, it's not that big of a deal. Just leave your ship and join your ship, or sit down on a chair or something like that, and it usually solves the problem. In this case, I didn't encounter too many issues, and I was able to log out and log back in at the same location. Now, I headed back into the waste management facility, headed over to the commodities window, and sure enough, there was some supply of Neo and Ultra Toxin, but not the good stuff, the Widow and the ETAM. So unfortunately, this drug run that I'm going to be doing today is not going to be as lucrative as it could be, but I'm still going to buy out all the quantity that I can and then head over to Breaker's Yard to sell some of the drugs. So open up your star map, go to Daymar and find Bryo's Breaker Yard and select it and quantum travel over there. You can just quickly quantum travel in atmosphere if you just get a little bit of elevation. You don't have to go all the way into outer space. Just hold the quantum travel button like you see on your screen, fly up and wait until the marker indicator turns blue from red. And the moment that does, just turn around, look at the marker on the lunar surface, and allow the quantum unit to calibrate and travel. It's pretty convenient. Man, Daymar is probably one of my favorite places in the verse. This moon is just so aesthetically pleasing. But we're pulling up to Breaker's Yard, and it's a good idea to keep your eyes open for any ships, any blue indicators, especially any red indicators, or any ships that are landed at this location. It means you're probably going to be encountering some players. Not everybody is hostile, but just be aware that you might be getting into a situation where you need to bring out your gun to defend yourself, or negotiate a way out of a situation, or just go over and say hi to the other players and let them know what your intentions are. Yes, there is full VoIP in Star Citizen, and it's wise to use it from time to time, I mean. So anyways, we're going to go to the center of the Breaker Yard, and we're going to pull up those commodity windows and sell all of the drugs that we have it doesn't matter the like the demand, because they're just going to be able to purchase all of it in bulk. There are other places to sell these drugs at like Grimhex or CRUL5, but the availability, like the amount that they actually want to buy, is so low that you'll likely just be sitting there and waiting a long time to sell, when you could just be going out there and doing more drug runs or doing more missions. So this is why this location is so popular. Now, the demands for these substances are going to be pretty low. That will affect the price, but you're always going to be making a profit. The prices and the availability and the demand is so low right now because there are a few exploits out there that players are using to sell massive quantities of drugs, which is basically tanking the demand and the price. But even still, we got a little unlucky with the availability and the quantities and the demand, but I was still able to make 60,000 AUEC on a pretty bad drug run with a really unlucky drug run, and that easily pays for the cutlass that we rented, and then also made us a little bit of money in a relatively short period of time. I typically average 60 to 120,000 AUEC per run right now, so it's not that bad money, all things considered, and probably one of the more profitable ways of doing money runs, specifically with cargo. Now, if you want to do quantum beacon marked locations for drug running in Crusader, that is everything that you really need to know about doing that. However, if you want to go to Jumptown, the unmarked territory, which typically has larger quantities of drugs available, then I will be showing you how to do that right now as well. So we're going to go to Yela, and when you're at Yela, you jump to Yela, you're going to be looking for a thing called Orbital Maneuver 5. Now, the easiest way for me to get to Orbital Maneuver 5, I find, is by going to Yela and clicking on the comm array, setting my target, and that's automatically going to put me to Orbital Maneuver 5. So I don't have to be searching around for it. Sometimes it pops up, sometimes I find it doesn't. So, bam. Easy peasy, Orbital Maneuver 5. Now from there, I'm just going to cancel my route. And we're going to look to the moon. And we're going to find ArcCorp Mining Area 157. And the Talarine Divide Aid Shelter. And we're going to hold F5 and we're going to look in. So, in between these two markers, it's kind of hard to see because of the sun. We're looking for this area here. So it's currently at 250 minus 26. So 250 on the compass, minus 26 on the pitch, roughly. And you're going to see these three mountains, these two mountains, and this one mountain. It's kind of like just a triangle right here. So again, we're in between these two markers, right? We kind of look in and we see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1. We're going to be aiming for the tip of that triangle. So right here, or in this case, 247 minus 27, roughly. And we're just going to fly in. We're going to keep that heading. It's going to look a little bit better whenever we get closer because the sun is really bright right now. It is easier when the conditions are not so bright, but there gives us a better idea. We got those three mountains, the two mountains and the one mountain. Once you find your heading, it's as simple as pressing C on the thrust and just setting it and forgetting it. It's going to take a few minutes before you fly in and get close. But once you do, you want to keep your eyes open for a structure that's going to be on the surface of the moon. A little bit more to the right, which is the tip of that triangle that we kind of talked about, or in this case, you see two mounds. You want to focus a bit more on the mound on the right-hand side. Now, somehow I missed it popping up on my screen. I got distracted by a destroyed eclipse, but I'm actually just going to pause it so you guys can see what it looks like flying in directly. You'll actually see the objects populate a little bit with the lights around the structure. So from here, this works the same way like all the other outposts we talked about in this video. You fly down. It's going to be a little bit larger than some of the other locations we've been, and then it's also going to have some pretty cool, unique features that really stand out and showcase the pirate vibe of the outpost. But basically, land as close as you can to the structure, get out of your ship. So once you've landed, head inside and find the commodities screen. And in my case, I did have a little bug where I was able to fix it by going through multiple inventories, and my ship eventually showed up, but I got really lucky. Slam and Widow were available for purchase. These are the best to buy. You're going to get the best return on your investment if you can get your hands on it. So I did get pretty lucky. If you put in all the work to fly to Jumptown and there's nothing available, maybe consider bed logging and taking the risk and trying a different region, and you might be able to buy some. And just for an example, the commodities that I purchased here in Jumptown, I took it directly over to Breaker's Yard and sold them for the same amount of profit where I went to all three of those outposts before. It was roughly like 65,000 AUEC that I was able to make from just this one location, which is really, really good. Now, funny enough, whenever I went over to Breaker's Yard, there was an AI that came over with a Cutlass Black and started shooting at my Cutlass that was landed on the ground. So that added a little bit of urgency to the situation, but I was able to successfully offload my illegal drugs or commodities, whatever cargo, whatever you want to call it, the Toxin, the Slam, and the Widow. And again, I was able to make roughly 60,000 AUEC, but instead of going to 3 different outposts, I just went to Jumptown and flew directly here. And I think that was because of the Slam. I was able to get a decent amount of it, which is definitely where the profit and the money is made. And again, this is going to depend on the demand of these commodities and the purchase price and quantities from these outposts. So you can expect far greater profitability depending on so many different factors, but you're never going to lose money if you sell. That's the most important thing. You will always make money. So I think it's not that important to dive into the weeds of it all. It's just buy the commodities, take it, sell it, and make some money. Now, I'll end this video with some risks in consideration. Whenever you're flying around the verse with illegal cargo, if you get stopped and scanned by Crusader security or any of the security services, you will get a crime stat, and with that crime stat, you'll either have to pay a fine or you're going to have to go to Klesher Rehabilitation and get rid of your crime stat. There's also a chance that a player will get a bounty to go and kill you, which is going to complicate things significantly. So in my opinion, if you get scanned, it's probably for the best that you run, quickly get the crime stat, and go to Breaker Yard and offload your cargo immediately. An alternate solution is to take your cargo over to Grimhex, store your ship, and then just try to remove your crime stat, either by going to Security Post Korea and hacking away your crime stat, or far easier, turning yourself in, going to Klesher, spend a small amount of time doing various things like mining, missions, or even escaping, and then going back and selling your cargo so you don't lose all your hard-earned AUEC. Other than selling drugs in Grimhex and CRUL5, which in my opinion are not worth it currently in 3.18, this is everything you need to know to run illegal cargo around Crusader. There are other locations in the verse, especially microTech, that I personally really enjoy, and that deserves its own video, very similar to this one, because there's also an unmarked location called Raven's Roost, which has a considerable amount of cargo that you can pick up. So expect a video on that in a little while, but if you found this video informative, useful, helpful in any way, please subscribe here on YouTube, like it, share with your friends, or if I missed anything that you think is really important, leave it in the comment section below and take a peek at that, because there's other Star Citizen players that might leave you some tips and tricks that I may have missed. Thanks again for watching, and also be sure to check out my live stream Monday through Friday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A link to that will be included in the description box below.